I think one of the reasons the Vikings are so good is because of some of these acquisitions that they made in the offseason. And I think that kind of transitioned us nicely to an article from Dustin Baker that you shared with me. 6 winners and losers for the Vikings so far.
Yeah, Dustin Baker, he identified 3 winners and 3 losers as far as the Vikings roster is going so far this season. And all of the winners were acquired after last season ended. And all of the losers were players on the team previously. And not that, if you were on the team before, you're a loser. No. But it is kind of funny how those match up a little bit.
It's interesting, right?
What do you think about that article and the winners specifically?
So should I just list out the 3 winners? So Dustin lists out Andrew Van Ginkel, Sam Darnold, and Stephon Gilmore as the 3 winners on the Vikings so far. Winners being players that have just really excelled, played well, have a huge upside right now as it relates to their performance on the team. And I don't think I could agree more with this list. I think it's perfect.
Yeah.
Andrew Van Ginkel has 2 pick sixes. I mean, he's on track for like a record number of those.
Which that's the thing that's not sustainable. He'll probably end. He might get 1 or 2 more. That's not one that you can statistically track.
I saw something today. I mean, he's been so good at he locks in on the quarterback. He watches the QB's eyes. And I saw something today that said, I can't wait for him to do the same thing to the Lions because they throw those cute little screen passes. And I'm going to be watching for it too. Now that whoever said that out there in the Twitterverse said that, I want to see Van Ginkel get another one because I think it's possible in this matchup against the Lions next week.
Absolutely. I might have seen the same thing you saw because it was like a meme and it was just a picture of Van Ginkel, like the biggest smile in the world, like super jacked up, probably right after one of those pick sixes. And the caption was Van Ginkel watching all of these screen passes from Jared Goff tonight. So,
yes, that's exactly what I saw. So I think, yes, obviously he's on the list. He's been huge. To have 2 touchdowns on 2 pick sixes as a linebacker.
And he almost had another pick against Brock Purdy in the Niners game too. But all that to say, he's playing really well.
He's well deserving of being on this list. Sam Darnold, he's not been flashy. He's not been he's had the 97-yard bomb to Justin Jefferson. He's made some great connections with Jordan Addison, Jalen Naylor. But I think we've both just applauded his ability to manage the game, his ability to get the play call from the sideline, from KOC, read the defense, make the right read, make the right throw.
Yep.
And I think he's done that to a T, and he's done really, really well. He's made some mistakes. He's not been perfect by any means, but he's a good quarterback, and I'm excited to see how he continues to develop in KOC's offense. Yeah,
like you said, he's made a couple of bonehead plays or decisions, some things like throwing a ball down and it almost was a fumble or picked off, or having a backward lateral that Brandon Powell had to save him from. There's been a couple of that, and they're kind of starting to show up a little bit more. But I think what you were really saying is the nice thing, and we're seeing it, is KOC and Sam Darnold. We're seeing that they trust each other. KOC trusts Sam Darnold to do his job. I don't know how many options of plays KOC gives Darnold every play call. Maybe it's 1, maybe it's 10, maybe it varies. But KOC trusts Darnold, and Darnold, I think it's pretty obvious, trusts not only KOC, but he kind of trusts himself to make throws, but also to know KOC is going to put him in a position to give him the best options. And I feel like it's got to be good for a quarterback to just know, okay, coach is doing his job, and if I trust coach, things will look the way they're supposed to. And I think we go back all the way to the Atlanta Falcons Josh Dobbs game, where the story was that KOC was translating the play,
spoon-feeding plays to Josh Dobbs on the sideline.
in the huddle, he'd be like, okay, say these words. And then as they broke and he walked up with the few seconds they had left, KOC would be like, okay, so this is what that means. This guy's going to go this way, your first read's here. And then that's a lot of trust.
He gets cuts off and then they run the play.
But I think it's pretty obvious you're seeing KOC and Sam Darnold trust each other. And what I really hope is that that trust is also seeping into JJ McCarthy. Because they've got to be in the same meetings and they've got to be around. Sure. And I hope JJ's just being a sponge and soaking everything up. But yeah, the one concern, though, is the last 6 quarters, everybody says, is that Sam Darnold is starting to turn a little orange. He's starting to turn into a pumpkin a little bit. But I think that's just a slump. I think it's still going to be okay. We need to trust each other, and it's going to be good from here on out.
And not to make excuses, but he has been beat up a little bit. I mean, he's been hit hard. The end of the Packers game, they were coming after him. And then in London, the Jets were flying after him. And there was that one play where it looked like he got like a shot to the ribs or something and maybe bruised or broke a rib or something. And it took him a minute to get up off the field, and we were all kind of holding our breath like, oh no.
Yeah.
And Nick Mullins came in for a play
and threw a dart.
Crazy pass to Aaron Jones, and then of course Sam Darnold comes right back in. But yeah, you got to wonder if some of that's just like wear and tear. Like, you're 6 games in on this season now, and 5 games I guess for the Vikings. 5 games in, and you've taken some hits, and your offensive line has played well, but they're not going to catch everything, and they're not going to prevent every defender from coming through, especially when you're going up against some of the league's best.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and those 2 injury plays, the knee or ankle twisting, weird, awkward-looking play against the Packers where Darnold came out, and I think he went to the blue tent. And then obviously the one that you were talking about too, the rib one where he's kind of writhing in pain. Mm-hmm. Both of those instances, right after the play, Darnold did not look like a guy who was going to come back into the game. Like, he looked like a guy that was going to miss some time. Even the Packers game, the next day, we were all kind of like waiting on news from that MRI. Like, okay, is his knee actually okay? Like, or his ankle or whatever that ended up being. And so far, he's avoided, at least publicly, any major injury. And I think an injury to Darnold for the season would do the same thing to this team that the Cousins injury did to it last year, which it's kind of scary. It is.
Any team is one quarterback away from tanking, honestly, right? Like, you saw it with the Dolphins. Tua Tagovailoa, great quarterback, goes out in week 2, and they haven't been the same since.
Yep.
We're watching the Bills and the Jets right now. We know what happened to the Jets last year because Aaron Rodgers went out 4 plays into the season last year or something ridiculous like that. And on the other side of the ball in this Monday night game, Josh Allen, right? Like, are the Bills the same team without him?
Oh, I doubt it.
I don't think so.
He's such a talented player. That's why the best teams also, coincidentally, have the best quarterbacks.
Yes. And I wouldn't put Sam Darnold up there in the like upper echelon of quarterbacks.
He's playing like it though. But
he's playing really, really well.
I'm
not trying to downplay Sam Darnold. I'm trying to say he's playing a lot better than any of us expected him to. I expected at this point in the season, and we could go back and replay my take, I expected JJ McCarthy, if he was healthy, to be inserted into the lineup right now.
Yeah.
Week 7 against the Lions after the bye week. The Sam Darnold experiment is over. It's time for this new kid to take over and see what he can do.
Well, and I mentioned Darnold, his last 6 or so quarters of Vikings football haven't been elite. I guarantee if everything was exactly the same, except for JJ's injury, I guarantee there'd be a lot of Vikings fans right now that would be clamoring for JJ to get in there. They'd be saying things like, hey, this team is so good, we can't mess with this 5-0 record if Darnold's starting to turn back into a pumpkin. Thank goodness. And I'm a very big JJ fan. I will be super happy when he's the starting quarterback of the team, despite the things I've said about signing Sam Darnold long term. I'm very glad that that's not an option right now, because you just sometimes when you're in a slump, which Darnold's not in a slump, but he's slumping, he's kind of edging towards that a little bit. When you're in a slump, the worst thing is to pull you out.
And maybe the bye week was perfect timing for Sam Darnold. Take a break, get healthy, like fully healthy, get back to, game 1 form. I'm ready to go. I'm firing on all cylinders. Get some time in the office with KOC, with Wes Phillips, offensive coordinator, and really get down to business. All right, this is what's happened so far in the first 5 games. These are some of the things that we need to fix. Let's figure them out. We've got a big game coming out of the bye week against a divisional rival, possibly the divisional rival that could potentially win the division over us. Let's figure this out.
Absolutely. And I haven't heard any details about this, but I hope a few things for Sam Darnold during this bye week. I hope he took some time to rehab a little bit, because obviously he's bumped and bruised regardless of the severity. He's got some things he's dealing with. I hope he got to have a day or two off, recharge the batteries. Everybody needs that, whether you're, the lowest of the low unemployed person, or you're, Tom Brady. Like, everybody needs a day off. And I hope he did get to do that and spend some office time in with KOC, in with whoever's in that room, whether it's Josh McCown or Wes Phillips or anybody, JJ McCarthy. I don't know. Like, I hope they got to mix things up a little bit and figure out the perfect game plan from here on out. And if they did all those things, we should be sitting pretty.
Well, we're not even halfway through Dustin's 6 winners and losers, but we are halfway through the beer for the episode, so we should maybe take a break from the article. We'll come back to it. We've still got 1 more winner and 3 more losers, which we'll talk about. But let's crack open the Tyketoberfest. All right, we got to finish this list here. We've got 1 more winner. We've talked about Andrew Van Ginkel. We've talked about Sam Darnold. Stephon Gilmore is the final winner. And I agree, too. The game-sealing interception against the Jets, huge. I'm staring right at it because you're sitting right next to it there. Stephon Gilmore used to play for the Colts.
I don't think you can see it. And if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, definitely if you're watching like the clipped out version on YouTube, you can't see it. But we do have the it's like a commemorative pennant.
Sure.
It's not shaped like a pennant, but it's the felt pennant material that commemorates the largest comeback in NFL history.
Yep, December 17th, 2022, Vikings against the Colts. They came back in overtime. They were down 33-0 and won 39-36. But Stephon Gilmore played on that Colts team, and one of my most vivid memories of that game didn't happen during it happened during the game, but my memory of it happened after the game, watching some of the Vikings content that came out. Paul Allen ripped Stephon Gilmore apart on the broadcast for a hit that he laid on Justin Jefferson. He just kind of basically said, like, leave our kid alone. He has no business going after our guy like that, or something, as only Paul Allen can do.
Sure. We love Paul Allen, by the way.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But it's just interesting that here he is on this team, and he's making a huge impact.
Oh, yeah.
I think between him and Shaq Griffin, those 2 guys have allowed very few completions. Obviously, Gilmore has the game-sealing interception against the Jets in London. He's up there in terms of these off-season acquisitions Kwesi has orchestrated to put this roster together, and he's playing up to his contract for
Absolutely.
Sure.
And I don't remember him hitting Justin Jefferson like crazy. I do remember the beautiful move Justin Jefferson put on Gilmore to score a touchdown in the middle of that comeback. And maybe the hit was after that, a little bit of retaliation. But these are professional football players. It's a contact sport. I don't have the specific stats in front of me, but I think, quarterbacks are typically not throwing Gilmore's way. He's doing his job. And when they do, I saw it today, quarterbacks, when they throw Gilmore's way, have something like a 66, somewhere around their quarterback rating. So they're not doing very well when they throw Stephon Gilmore's way. And I mean, what is he, 34? Super old, super ancient.
I turned 34 in like a month.
Yeah, and I'll be there just a few months later. But as far as NFL cornerbacks go, that is super old and super ancient.
Yes.
He's still getting it done. And I think he played really well last year as well for the Cowboys. Is that where he was last year?
Maybe.
he's only had a couple of down-ish years, and a down year for Stephon Gilmore is not really a down year. I'm glad he's on the team. I think the $10 million they paid him for this season is money well spent. And in this Vikings territory article, Dustin Baker pointed out Gilmore signed right before the season started. I think training camp there's still a little bit of time in training camp, but Gilmore had enough time to kind of scan the league. I'm sure the Vikings were not his only opportunity to play football this year. They might have been the highest dollar value opportunity, but probably not by much. But Gilmore chose to come to the Vikings, and he's proving that Kwesi made a good decision. And he's another one. Gilmore, Dalton Reisner. There's a few players that it feels like Vikings Twitter has bullied Kwesi Adofo-Mensah into signing, but that's okay. They're working out so far.
Well, I've seen another graphic on Twitter, and it's this long list of all these offseason acquisitions, Sam Darnold included, Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, who we've already talked about, Stephon Gilmore, Shaq Griffin. The Vikings signed, I think, like 8, 9, 10 players for the same amount that Kirk Cousins and Christian Darrisaw would have cost.
Daniil Hunter.
Darrisaw
was signed.
You're right.
Yep.
That was just a Freudian slip. But yes, Daniil Hunter and Kirk Cousins would have taken up, and maybe still do take up, a lot of that cap space on the Vikings roster. And these 10 players add up to less than or about equal to what Kirk and Daniil would have taken up. It's crazy. It's nuts.
And a lot of those are defensive players. And I think, and not to take anything away from Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, because I think at this point he's proving he's a good GM. The team is good, and they have consistently been good. They would have been good last year if not for Kirk's injury, because he was starting to turn things around. Again, not to take anything from Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, but I think the defensive signings, you have to give a lot of credit to Brian Flores. And for that reason, you need to, even though he's earning his head coaching spot somewhere, he's always been a good coach, and if not for the legal issues that he has brought to the league, he probably would be a head coach right now. But you got to keep him. You got to keep Brian Flores. Blank check. And that, again, we've said it, that may have already happened. I feel like that one of the first times we had Dustin Baker on the Skol Hop, darn near a year ago, by the way, was the first time Dustin Baker was on. I think he either on the recording or just to us alluded to the fact that Brian Flores is currently one of the highest paid coaches in the league, coordinator or not, which he's proving that he's deserving of that. So keep it up. Give Brian Flores a lifetime contract. He deserves to be a head coach. He deserves all the accolades. But if he's going to get blackballed by the league because he had the audacity to sue them for what seems like probable, good causes, I mean, if the Vikings might as well benefit from that,
Yeah. I think we can make pretty quick work of the next three. The three losers, Ed Ingram, Caleb Evans, Brian Asamoah. None of those players have really shown any flashes. Dustin, in his article on the latter two, talks about how neither of those two, Caleb Evans or Brian Asamoah, really start on defense or have any snaps on defense whatsoever.
Oh, the Jets are about to score a touchdown.
Oh, boy.
Breece Hall. Oh, he got to the 2 or 3. Anyways, keep going.
But those two, Evans and Asamoah, they've only really seen time on special teams, and they're not really doing a whole lot to make a case for themselves as starters on this roster. And then Ed Ingram, he's a known issue going into the season.
Yeah.
I mean, he struggled last year. He was stepping on Kirk's feet. And run blocking, I think he's decent. But when it comes to pass protection, he struggles. And that's where this news of Dalton Reisner and his practice window being opened really kind of like brightens things up for the Vikings offensive line. Like, oh, okay. Well, maybe if we can get Dalton Reisner to brush up on his run blocking skills, because that's notoriously his weakness is run blocking, or if we can keep both guys, and it's not like you can swap them out every play, but you almost have kind of that like hockey like transition where guys are just kind of coming in like mid play off the sideline there. On your run plays you got Ed Ingram, and on your pass plays you got Dalton Reisner when it works. Yep. And you have the depth there, so if somebody else goes out, you can swap in one of those guys in another spot and they can play if somebody gets hurt. So I don't know. I don't disagree with that list either. I think if one were to stay, I think Ed Ingram is the one to stay.
Yeah, just he's a second round pick. Yeah,
and he's got the most time and experience with this line. And no, he hasn't played well this year, but I don't know who else other than Dalton Reisner really takes that spot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I also do not disagree with this list at all. Ed Ingram, he's been the Achilles heel at times of the offense. Him and, I hate to say it, but Garrett Bradbury, especially this year, the two of them have been, I can't even think of the word. They have not helped the team at all. They've been
underwhelming.
Yes,
for sure.
They've been, the reason there have been a lot of pains when Darnold looks up and there's already a defender in his face. Usually it's because of Garrett Bradbury or most likely Ed Ingram. I think all three of these are definitely square on the top of the list of losers for the Vikings. I think there's a real chance any or all three of these will not be on the team after this season. And I think you could trick somebody into trading for Ed Ingram. Again, it wouldn't be a first-round pick. You'd be getting maybe a conditional 6th or 7th for Ed Ingram, and maybe even Caleb Evans as well. Both of those have shown a play or two worth of flashes to be able to say maybe you can get something out of them. Brian Asamoah, he's been just the special teams linebacker. He's had every opportunity and just keeps not taking advantage of it. I don't think he'll be on the team much past this year.